Tonight on Blue Mondays, it's our second show of 2012. Disrespecting the office of the president hits new lows. Bobby Jindal takes a chainsaw to public education and funding for UMC. And Democrats tour the state. All this and more on Blue Mondays for February 6th, 2012. Welcome to an all-new season of Blue Mondays. This is our second show. I'm pretty excited. We're happy to be back, and I am your host, Stephen Handwork. Blue Mondays is on the first and the third Mondays of every month at 8:30 p.m. on AOC 1, which is Cox Channel 15 and LUS Channel 3. Blue Mondays takes a look at local, state, and national news from a progressive perspective. We want to let everyone know that you can find us and talk with us at facebook.com/Blue Mondays LA, and you can follow us on Twitter at Blue Mondays LA. So welcome to the show. We're looking forward to getting started off. Here we go. Disrespecting the office of the President of the United States. Well, first we start off with Kansas Speaker of the House asked for Republicans to pray for Obama's death by quoting Psalm 109. And the quote is, let his days be few, and let another take his office. Let his children be fatherless, and his wife a widow. This is unbelievable. It's clearly beyond the pale, and it went out in an email as a fundraising appeal down there. This is ridiculous. We can also add to that our very own Congressman Landry holding up his sign, "Drilling equals jobs," for the whole fake moratorium thing that they were so outraged about. We actually have more people now working in the Gulf than we've ever had before. So Landry is completely off base with that. How about we add into that the Joe Wilson of South Carolina and his "You lie" shout heard around the world. That was unprecedented. That never happened before. During the healthcare fight, you'll remember that there were images floating around of the president as some sort of tribal witch doctor. Those went around, and those were being done by Republican Party members who were actually sending that out. Republicans can only seem to call him Obama and never giving him the courtesy of calling him the president. And that's one of the things that, I had a lot of criticism for Bush throughout the years. A lot. You guys know that. But I always called him President Bush when he was in office. It's a show of respect for the office, not necessarily the man or the woman that holds the office. So it's really ridiculous. But now we've gone really even further. Now we add into that the crazy birthers that have been egged on by Donald Trump, constantly questioning the president's origin and making him deliver this special form that was never good enough for them. But by far the most egregious is the latest. Arizona Governor Jan Brewer, which you can see pictured right here, she starts shaking her finger in the president's face in an argument on the tarmac out there in Arizona. This was ridiculous. I just want to ask you guys the question. Imagine just for a moment if Governor Blanco would have done that to President Bush, during Katrina. I would argue she would have had every single right to do that, especially because of the non-response that we were getting from the federal government at that time. However, she didn't. Why? That's because Governor Blanco is a classy lady and she would never do something like that. But guess what? Not so much out of our Arizona governor, Jan Brewer. To me, this is just absolutely ridiculous. Again, it goes beyond the pale. And the more we disrespect the president's office, I think the more we hurt ourselves as a nation, no matter who's in the office. But anyhow, we'll see if we can actually stop it. Next up, Bobby Jindal takes a chainsaw to the budget, slashing funding for kids and the working poor by proposing draconian cuts to the budget at UMC. Groups are standing up to actually fight. There's a Facebook group. You can actually do a search for them. It's Save UMC of Lafayette Jobs. What you should do is, actually the easiest way to find them is go to our page on Facebook, which is Blue Mondays LA, and you can actually see we've liked it on that page, so you can actually click through to them to see what they're doing. But they're holding a bunch of different organized protests that they're going to be having there at UMC to hopefully call attention to this so that people in the area understand what's truly being discussed. we're hoping that folks will actually help them out. So please go over, like their page so that they can see that they have some support out there. I've heard, especially about the UMC cuts, what I find is so hard to believe. I've heard many stories now, especially for the past 2 weeks while this has been in the news, stories from individuals telling us about, they've been on a waiting list for so long to actually get some treatment that they need, not necessarily life-saving treatment, but certainly quality of life treatments that they've been waiting on, and only to find out now that those departments are now being closed or set to close at UMC because of these huge, drastic funding cuts. Teachers are also getting caught. Teachers are starting to stand up as well. Parents are standing up to fight the cuts that are being made to our schools. One of the things that people need to understand is whenever we talk about vouchers, vouchers for kids to go to private schools, this is only a subsidy for rich people. Okay, those vouchers don't cover the full price of what it's going to cost to go to that private school. So let's say that your bill for the semester for your kid is $5,000. Okay, the voucher is going to cover maybe $2,500 of that. Where are you going to get the extra $2,500? Okay, if a parent is having a problem coming up with $5,000, I almost guarantee you that $2,500, that's going to be hard for them as well, and they're probably not going to be able to do it. So what this ends up doing is only giving discounts or subsidies to the ultra-rich people who would be going to private schools anyway. It does not help existing kids who are in the schools, and what's worse, it actually takes money out of our public schools and gives it to these private schools who are doing quite well on their own, thank you very much. This is definitely something that needs to be taken care of as soon as possible. The other thing that we need to realize too is private schools are virtually unchecked. They're exempt from testing. They're exempt from having certified teachers. That's right. You could actually have an electrician teaching your kids math, which I don't know that that's really a smart idea. I'm not saying that electricians don't know math. But what I'm saying is I'd like to know that my teacher who's teaching my kid actually has been taught themselves how to teach correctly. And so that is a huge issue, I think, that folks need to realize. Seemingly unrelated groups. The interesting thing about this is all of these unrelated groups that are actually getting together and starting to work together to make sure that they fight back the governor. You're seeing teachers now working with police officers, and police officers now working with Democratic legislators, and Democratic legislators actually working with Republican legislators, all to stop Governor Jindal and these horrible cuts. We're hoping that it actually takes off and we're actually able to stop him. Governor Jindal, though, not one to be dissuaded, is taking his show on the road. Hopefully he'll end up looking like, this guy does. But one of the things I want everyone to understand here, too, is his key spokesperson for Bobby Jindal, Timmy Teeple, who is his former chief of staff. You've got to know that Teeple is talking about all of these cuts to colleges in our schools. This man was homeschooled and has never attended college in his life, public or otherwise. Something we should pay attention to. Next up, state and party officials, state and local elections are quickly approaching, and there's some things that you should know and why it's so important. The DSCC is the Democratic State Central Committee, and the DPECs, the Democratic Parish Executive Committees. They're two different types of offices, and we've got a lot of really good people running that I think that you should know about. One of our friends from the show is actually running for the PEC, the Parish Executive Committee, and her name is Dr. Barbara Connor. She's running for one of those seats. A great friend of mine, Portia Evans-Wilson, is also running for the Democratic State Central Committee as well as the Parish Executive Committee. And another good friend of our show who will actually be submitting a segment for us for the next show that will be up on February 20th, Mike Stagg is running for the Democratic Parish Executive Committee. All of those folks, and including myself, hi, how are you? I'm running as well and could really use the support, so we should pay attention. These positions are so vital because what it does is these are the leaders that are going to be shaping and determining the way the party is going to go for the next 4 years. So the question to voters is, do you want to continue with the status quo, or do you want to actually put the people in these positions that will actually fight? And I'm hoping that the fight is just beginning. State Democratic Party officials from the state party, their staff, and also the chairman of the party visited Lafayette, New Iberia, and they just completed a full state tour over the past 7 days. Our producer, Robert J. Wilson, was at one of these events. Actually, he was at two of them, but he was able to take a camera crew with him to the Lafayette event, and he'll be bringing us a full report on our next show, which will be on February 20th. So you'll want to make sure you tune in for that. Mayor President Joey Durrell makes it official. We do not discriminate against lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender people in employment. The mayor president, or the president of the parish, actually signed a non-discrimination policy in 2007, but just recently all of those policy and procedural manuals have actually been updated to reflect those changes. This is an important change that does more than one thing. First off, it keeps us competitive, right, in the employment arena. The younger generations see this as a key factor. Whether they're gay or not, it does not matter. They don't want any of their friends, and they surely don't want to work for a company that's actually going to discriminate against their friends or family members. So it certainly attracts younger and creative people, but it provides a much needed protection so that employees no longer need to hide at the workplace for fear of being found out. It provides legal recourse for employees who may have been discriminated against by a department head or others. This is certainly a great first step, but it doesn't go far enough. We have to keep pushing on this. The need to codify this into law. There is no ordinance protecting anyone. So the normal protections such as race, religion, sex, all of that is not actually protected right now in local ordinance. That means we have to rely on the state constitution in order to protect these individuals. So we must make sure that we work incredibly hard to actually pass a local ordinance. So we're definitely calling on the Consolidated Council to bring forth an ordinance that specifically protects people from discrimination due to age, race, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression. All of that being said, I really want to make an honest and heartfelt thank you to President Durrell and his CAO, Dee Stanley, for this. I was happy to be involved with this move, and I'm really thankful for all of their help that they provided. So thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it. Next up, President Obama's third State of the Union address. Most interesting, the president, as he was walking in, and a lot of this was talked about after the fact, but as the president was walking into the chambers and, all the hoopla that happens then, he specifically calls out SecDef, Secretary of Defense, Leon Panetta, and says, "You did a great job tonight, great job." Well, we found out later what that was actually about. The SEAL Team 6, the same team that was responsible for killing Osama bin Laden, they rescued an American and several others being held hostage by Somali pirates. This was huge, and we're incredibly proud of those brave men and women that did this. Here are some key facts that people need to understand from the State of the Union. Since the president took office, we've imported 1.1 million fewer barrels a day, and domestic oil production has increased by more than 620,000 additional barrels a day. Because of the president's unprecedented investments in clean energy, we're producing 70% more power from wind and solar, and we've created more than 224,000 clean energy jobs. So don't let people tell you that this president is so bad for the oil industry. He's not, okay? We're actually doing more domestic production than we've ever done before, and it's thanks to this president and the policies. But guess what? We can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can produce more for our country. We can also increase our green jobs, and to boot, we can also do it safely so that no one's killed. The president called on Congress to get their act together and pass legislation that everyone agrees on, but the Republicans in the House have passed no bills, not one at all, that focus on jobs. They've passed far right-wing issues that have no chance of actually becoming law, but that's what's going on in our Congress right now. Next up, General Motors announces a 16% rise in business which places them solidly in the lead internationally. GM is now back on top, baby, and it's really good to hear. Toyota there was up there for a while. GM took back over. This would not have happened without the president's leadership to save the jobs. GM has repaid their loan with interest, and hundreds of thousands of jobs were saved. This is an example of how we can actually work together and save jobs and actually help this country. So hopefully we'll be able to continue on that path with this president. Next up, the Republican response. Governor Mitch Daniels from Indiana. Boy, this guy was all gloom and doom. If you saw this, all of the comedians, all of the Tonight Show, Daily, Jon Stewart, all of them said how horrible this guy actually did because it was so dark and scary, and it was not based in fact. That was for certain. This governor blames everything on the president. Meanwhile, each and every program pushed by President Obama has been neutered by Republicans or left to die on the vine. Senate Republicans are still filibustering every bill that comes to them, meaning that they need 60 votes to pass anything in that chamber. One Republican senator alone is now blocking every single one of President Obama's appointments. Important to note, no new program or ways to improve the economy. Not one. It's just the same programs that the Bush administration had before. Cut taxes and that all going to trickle down. It's going to create jobs, trickle it all down. Well, guess what? It's not happening. Okay, and perhaps it's because maybe back in the 1920s when America actually made something, it would have created jobs. Maybe then. But guess what? Now America's #1 export is debt. It's teaching people how to play with money and play the markets in order to make money. That's not working for us, and it's certainly not working for the Republicans. Next up. The latest Republicans voted off the island. Yeah, that's probably fitting. Congratulations, Robert. Good job. Since our last show, there's been a lot of movement in the presidential primary. Huntsman's out. Perry's out. I don't know what Bobby's going to do. Bobby Jindal was probably inconsolable after Perry dropped out. Gingrich claims to be in it for the long haul. Go Newt! I got to tell you, that nothing made me happier than hearing that Newt was in it for the long haul. Results in South Carolina and Florida. South Carolina gave Newt his first win. It's interesting to note that there was a 20% increase in voter turnout for this primary as compared to 4 years ago for South Carolina. However, in each of the other contests that have happened so far, Iowa, New Hampshire, and Florida, we've seen a dramatic drop in voter turnout to the Republican primaries and caucuses. We're talking 10 to 15% drop. That's got to tell us something. There's not that much attention, and there's certainly not enthusiasm for these candidates that the Republicans have up. What will the Louisiana Republicans do? Last time the citizens voted for Huckabee in this state, but you may recall that the state party, the Republican state party actually overruled the people, and they gave all the delegates to McCain. Bobby Jindal's man's no longer in the race, like I said before. He must be inconsolable right now. But I want to point something out. The numbers that have actually been crunched, Romney spent his way to victory in Florida, spending $21 per vote. $21 per vote for the election in order to get his win in Florida. As we're locking down this show, there's been different reports all over the place that Gingrich and Romney are both now claiming that Donald Trump is going to endorse them. Wow. Next up, David the Teflon John Vitter runs into problems on CNN. Ashley Banfield interviews Vitter about the Republican presidential race. Take a look.
I'm going to do a right turn here. I know you are a professional politician, and I know you go on TV a lot, and I know coming on TV with me today, you had to know that this question was coming. So, and it's awkward for me to even ask it, but I got it. And I think you know where I'm going with this. Newt Gingrich.
I don't, but go ahead.
Okay, so here I go. Newt Gingrich has been suffering some heat over his cheating on his first wife, cheating on his second wife, with his third wife. And you have also suffered heat in your political career as well. Back in 2007, admitting to having made some calls to an alleged prostitution operation. You did very well when you ran for re-election in 2010. In fact, if I look at the numbers, I think you trounced your opponent by, what, 19 points or something like that? You seem to manage that baggage very well. I want you to weigh in on Newt Gingrich's baggage and handling that baggage and what it is like for a politician who has some serious baggage trying to be elected.
Well, Ashley, the good news is in America it's not up to CNN, it's up to the American people and it's up to voters. That was the case in my election in 2010. That's going to be the case in this presidential election. And I think the voters are going to look carefully at all sorts of issues. But my guess is what concerns them now is this horrible, horrible economy and their future and their struggles around the kitchen table.
Well, I appreciate that you say it's not up to CNN, but I like to say we're the messenger here, and one of the messages that you gave was this quotation about your incident, and you said, "This was a very serious sin in my past for which I am, of course, completely responsible." And that's why I bring it to you, not so that CNN can dictate how voters will vote, but so that we can take your message, including that one, which was kind of an embarrassing thing to have to admit to, as Newt Gingrich has had to admit to some very embarrassing things, and allow the voters to take those messages.
Right, Ashley, sure. Okay. You're personally doing, in my opinion, outdoing out King, but go for it.
I'm not trying to outdo anyone, sir. I am trying to hold you accountable for the things you did. And I also said that you beat your opponent by 19 points, which is a pretty nice thing to say. What I'm asking you is, can you compare the difficulties that you struggled with to what Newt Gingrich is struggling with?
No, I can't.
And that's that.
Again, I think the great news is in America is it's going to be up to the voters. And the voters are looking at a lot of issues. They're looking at the backgrounds of all of the candidates. But I think ultimately what they're most concerned about as they try to figure out how to pay their monthly bills is this horrible economy, how we come out of it. But again, that's going to be for them to decide.
And there you have it. Wow. I got to say, I'm so happy to see a reporter finally take him on this. I loved every minute of it. Vitter's never going to get away with this until he comes clean. You know, what was this serious sin? We think we all know what it is. Is he still going to prostitutes? You know, I think we have a right to know. But the hypocrisy of this is what is so galling out of this whole situation. You know, Vitter's going to be out there and telling us, you know, what the right way to have a marriage is, and that I personally cannot get married because, but he can, all the while he's out stooping prostitutes, making a mockery of the sanctity of marriage that he claims to hold so dear. Next up, we're going to end on a positive note. Obama 2012, baby, because Bo rides inside. That's right. This should certainly be a bumper sticker for the 2012 race. Everyone, here's the backstory. So Mittens Romney, as I lovingly refer to him, he had a dog, and he decided to take his family on vacation. Well, he has a lot of kids, he's packing them all in the station wagon. He thought it would be a great idea to put his golden retriever, his large-sized dog, in a pet carrier, in a kennel, on the top of his station wagon while they went across town, across the country. This poor dog was so scared that he, well, we'll say messed himself, okay, so badly that it was running down the sides of the car. And he talked about this in a book that he wrote and with several reporters. And he laughingly said that, yes, I had to take the whole family to a car wash so we could spray down the car. Meanwhile, they left the dog still up on top of the car. So I got to tell you, I'm incredibly happy that senior political advisor to the president, David Axelrod, posted this photo that you see right there of Bo riding inside with the president. So Obama 2012, because Bo rides inside, baby. That's what I think should actually be a bumper sticker, and I want it on my car. All right, so guess what? It's time to close this show. But guess what? No time. We've run out of time. No time to talk about David Vitter and all the other congressional Republicans from Louisiana tried to block the increase to the debt ceiling. This means that they don't want to pay the bills, even though they've already agreed to all of them by passing the budget that they passed. No time to talk about Congressman Bustani leading the fight to make sure that nobody getting government assistance can get access to that assistance at a liquor store, at a strip joint. But his solution, this is a solution without a problem. Where is the congressman on the billions with a B, billions of dollars that are being wasted through Medicare and Medicaid fraud by doctors, hospitals, and medical supply houses? No comment from the good congressman. No time. We have no time to talk about the Susan G. Komen Foundation stripping funding for vital services like pap smears, breast exams, and more from Planned Parenthood. 97% of everything that Planned Parenthood does has nothing to do with abortion. But we've quickly run out of time. Our next show will be on February 20th. Again, we'd like to remind you to like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Blue Mondays LA. You can also follow us on Twitter at Blue Mondays LA. And I'd really appreciate hearing from you, those of you watching the show. Tell us what you'd like us to talk about in upcoming shows. Tell us who you'd like to see as a guest. We've got the technology, we'll bring it to you. So hopefully you keep following us. We really appreciate you watching the show. Thank you so much. And don't forget, go to Facebook, click on over to the Blue Mondays LA. And if you're not careful, I might even tweet this week. Notice I actually said it right.